There is one thing and only one thing worth watching, at least in the intermediate, for the Kansas City Chiefs, because without this one thing working out, well, maybe nothing else will matter. Obviously, that one thing, well, it's pass catchers for the Kansas City Chiefs, something that seems to be dwindling as the season goes on. And you will note that I left Mecole Hardman off of this list because he popped up mysteriously on the injury report, and I'm not real sure what to do with him in a video like this anyway, because we seem to know exactly what Mecole Hardman is. We seem to know exactly what Mecole Hardman offers the Kansas City Chiefs in the dynamic of Andy Reid's offense, but we haven't seen any of that thus far this season. So I put together a couple of stats on each of these guys and a thought or two about what it is that we're going to want to watch with them in the intermediate to see if this offense can have some sign of life without number one and two pass catchers and the number one running back. But real quick, guys, if you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other Kansas City Chiefs fans. And if you find yourself here by chance but not design, the Chiefs are the only thing I talk about, dropping multiple videos every single week. I've dropped the video for about 600 consecutive days now, and I hope to have you back for the next one, so make sure you are subscribed. We're going to start this, of course. So I also left Travis Kelce off of the list because we know who Travis Kelce is, even if he goes through rough patches once in a while. But the number one name on this list should not surprise anyone. It is Xavier Worthy. He is right now, through the live-long season, 4 games, getting 3 or 4 targets and managing 2 or 3 receptions per game. He's providing Mahomes with a 106.7 rating when targeted. He has some rushing stats as well. I don't think we are very likely to see Xavier Worthy carry the football very often, because that is too much of a risk for your number one wide receiver at this point. He's 165, 170 pounds. Getting him the ball that close to defensive linemen and linebackers, especially with the speed that those guys have at the NFL level, I just don't see that there is much upside to that when you are very thin at the wide receiver position. He has a 10.9 yard average depth of target, meaning that Mahomes is not throwing him the ball until he's 11 yards downfield. On top of that, he has a 17.1 yard average per reception. So the important thing here in moving forward with Xavier Worthy is going to be monitoring whether or not they start working him in on shorter routes. It's something he can do. He definitely has the stop ability. I talk about Xavier Worthy's stop ability all the time. He's very good at 10 to 15 yard routes as well as the deep stuff. So I think to really get the offense going, they're going to have to target Xavier Worthy more than once per quarter. It can't be Travis Kelce who ends up getting all of the targets from Rashee Rice being absent. Some of those, I think, maybe even a majority of the targets that do not go to Travis Kelce will end up going to Xavier Worthy. The next name on this list, in my opinion, has to be Justin Watson. Now, Justin Watson, I don't think is maybe the number 2 wide receiver at this point. I think that might end up being Juju Smith-Schuster. But Justin Watson has 8 targets and 6 receptions for 87 yards on the season. He's a big guy, 6'2", 215 pounds, very solid. He runs a 4.41 40-yard dash, 4.42 40-yard dash, something like that. And he's not as good at football as either Rashee Rice or Juju Smith-Schuster. That said, he's faster than both of them. I don't think he has it in him to be the 2022 version of Juju SmithSchuster or the 2023 version of Rashee Rice, let alone what had been the 2024 version of Rashee Rice. But if he can cut down on the drops, in 2022 he had 5, a 14.7% drop rate, and in 2023 he had 4, a 7.5% drop rate. If he can cut down on those numbers, he could prove to be, not probe to be, could prove to be just good enough to keep the defenses honest. Confoundingly, it may end up being Justin Watson and not Xavier Worthy that kind of steps into that Marquez Valdes-Scantling type role for the Kansas City Chiefs. Marquez Valdes-Scantling basically just ran downfield all game long and hoped to take a cornerback and a safety with him once in a while. I think Justin Watson can execute that better than did Marquez Valdes-Scantling. I don't know that he can execute that as well as someone like Xavier Worthy would, someone like Xavier Worthy. But with Justin Watson stepping into that role, possibly, if he can cut down on the drops, he can be better than was Marquez Valdes-Scantling in that role. I 1000% believe that. I think that Marquez Valdes-Scantling was in that role last season due to the Chiefs coaching staff trusting him not to make mistakes, not trusting him to catch the ball, trusting him to run the right route when he was supposed to, not trusting him to make plays. Justin Watson stepping into that role leaves Xavier Worthy to be more of the Rashee Rice type guy. I think the Rashee Rice role from 2023 might be closer to what we get for Xavier Worthy with the quick stuff. Snap the ball, throw it to Xavier Worthy and see what he can do with it, rather than the Juju SmithSchuster 2022 role of 5-yard outs, 5-yard in routes, things like that. The next name on the list, of course, is Juju SmithSchuster. On 98 snaps this season, he only has 2 receptions for 17 yards and a touchdown. All of his stats and 3 of his 4 targets on the season came against the Falcons. He doesn't have to do what he did in 2022, but the Chiefs need a guy who can give Mahomes a window and then make the catch. Juju SmithSchuster does not have to be a separation god. Juju SmithSchuster has to provide a throwing lane to Patrick Mahomes and then make the catch when the ball gets there. Do I think he can still do that? Mostly. Do I think he will be doing that to the tune that he was in 2022? Almost definitely not. Were he still that wide receiver on 98 snaps this season, I believe he would have more than 2 receptions. He would have 3 because I think 2022, he would have 3 receptions and 2 touchdowns because I think that the 2022 version of Juju SmithSchuster would have made that play versus the Ravens. Juju as a number 3 wide receiver was not the plan coming into the season, obviously. I still don't think that it is a terrible number 3 option so long as he can catch the ball. Unfortunately for the Chiefs, this is where everything ends. Because if Mecole Hardman finds himself sidelined as well, Sky Moore is your only other wide receiver on the roster. But this is the time to figure out whether or not anything is salvageable from Sky Moore. Through 4 games, he has 43 snaps and 0 receptions. If he can't improve on those numbers in the next couple of weeks, in my opinion, there is absolutely no reason to give away a roster spot like that. If he cannot improve on those numbers in the next couple of weeks, being the number 4 guy for the Kansas City Chiefs, I think you have to cut bait. I don't care that there is no one else on the active roster. I think you have to create the space and bring someone up from the practice squad. He's got 1 target and 1 drop on the season. 1 target, 1 drop, nothing else on 43 snaps. He can't return punts. He's not a threat running the ball. I just don't know what you get from having him on the active roster. Obviously, I'm wrong because I'm the guy talking into a microphone on the internet, and I'm not the guy who's calling plays in Kansas City. I'm not the guy who drafts players in Kansas City, but I, for the life of me, cannot figure it out. And look, I tried, right? All preseason long, I said, look, year 3 is when wide receivers traditionally break out. Sky Moore is not a tools guy. Sky Moore is a traditional wide receiver type guy. He's going to need to learn the system. He's going to need to learn the reads, and then he can maybe break out. Year 3 for Sky Moore would be the breakout year if there is to be a breakout year. We're a quarter of the way through the season and he has no stats. None. So I cannot stick up for that type of performance any longer. There are 2 more names here because I am going to throw the tight ends into the mix. Like I said, I left Travis Kelce off because we know he's been the career-long security blanket for Patrick Mahomes. There's obviously no growth to be had there. Through the first 3 games of the season, there was some regression had there, it looked like. But look, Travis Kelce has often had down games. He has sometimes had slumps. I don't know if we've ever seen him have that many games that bad in a row. So it could just be his rough patch this season. It is hard to say. We don't know yet. Jared Wiley, I have him above Noah Gray. I have him above Noah Gray because of the ceiling that he could provide. What do I mean by that? If Jared Wiley this season becomes a viable threat to catch the football, that is a bigger step forward for the offense than Noah Gray taking a smaller step forward. Will the Chiefs prioritize 3 tight end sets in order to make the most of their power running game and the least of a thin wide receiver core? Should Jared Wiley prove that to be a viable option for this offense, and running 3 tight end sets, they are still able to get angles, they are still able to get open, they are still able to be a receiving threat while having that many big bodies on the field, it could be absolutely transformational for this offense. We saw the Chiefs bring back Jody Fortson, who was that 3rd tight end the last time the Chiefs tried to do the 3 tight end thing. So maybe that's a bad sign for Jared Wiley. I'm not willing to concede that just yet. And finally, Noah Gray. Noah Gray has 90 yards, which is about 30% of his 2023 receiving total for the season, which was a career high. So, less than a quarter of the way through the season, just about a quarter of the way. After the first quarter, it'll be a quarter of the way through the season. He has 30% of his total receiving yards from last year. He's slightly ahead of pace to have a career year. Noah Gray might be just a good enough blend of big enough to kind of block and fast enough to kind of threaten to make the offense multi-dimensional while having 2 or 3 tight ends on the field. He does look faster this season. And if the Chiefs are able to consistently, so you have 11 spots, right? You can have 5 wide receivers. You can have 4 wide receivers and a running back. You can have 3 wide receivers, a tight end, and a running back. That's the split most teams use most of the time. 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 1 running back. If you want 2 tight ends, 2 wide receivers, and a running back, that second tight end has to be a bigger receiving threat than your third wide receiver in order to keep defenses honest. Right now, what that means for the Kansas City Chiefs is that Noah Gray would have to be a bigger receiving threat than either or Juju Smith-Schuster or Justin Watson, whoever you consider to be the third wide receiver on this team. Is that the case? I think it might be. I think the Chiefs might have a better receiving threat in Noah Gray than either Justin Watson or Juju Smith-Schuster, at least at this point in the season. So it may prove better for the Kansas City Chiefs to keep 2 tight ends, 2 wide receivers, and a running back on the field at all times. That's what I have for this video. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other Kansas City Chiefs fans. And if you find yourself here by chance but not design, the Chiefs are the only thing I talk about. So consider hitting the subscribe button, stick around for more. And as always, I hope to have you back for the next one.